Here we are. As he lights his cigarette.
Here we are.
His cigarette. In the darkness of the Boca Raton night.
The mouth of the rat.
A camel crush snaps oh so gently and crisp. Hello. This is episode 147 of Snakes and Stogies. I'm Justin Smith of palmettocoastexotics. I'm joined by Phil Wolf of the Nephris Initiative.
Hello.
This episode is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. You need a cage. You need a rack. You know where it's at.
I spent every moment that I could today, like when I had like 2 seconds to breathe at work, I would hop on my phone and I would start looking at rocks that I'm going to make out of foam and paint to put in my soon-to-be mine XT2 2-foot sliders from BlackBoxCages.com.
Ooh. I'm trying to think if there was a species that I had currently that I would want to like really go all out on in terms of a setup where I'm doing that same thing of, you know, looking at pictures of the range and trying to mimic that as best as I could. Like, which species would I do that with? It's a pretty hard choice.
The problem is you got to pick a species that you know isn't going to destroy what you build. You know what I mean?
Which is also tough,
especially with a lot of the stuff
they're all rat snakes, so they're all going to be
right. I mean, and that doesn't mean that you can't have more enrichment, more naturalistic decor. You just have to be a little more tactful with it. Stuff that can and will be knocked over, it'll still look good and feel good, even if it is knocked over.
Like it was supposed to be there.
Right, exactly.
Like nature knocked it over and set it there.
Exactly. I basically was talking to my buddy Chris at work, who's a closet herper, and he's big on the foam and carving and all that stuff. And I was like, look, man, I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to make like 100 fake pieces of shale and like slate rock. Like some of them will be dinner plate size. Some will be the size of like, you know, a silver dollar. And I'm just going to make like 100 of them and just throw them in there and just let it look like it's just rocky. And like, if there's
like an old slide or something.
Yeah, exactly. And or dare I say, you know, a talus. And if the snake knocks it over and it avalanches on the snake, who cares? Because it's foam, you know?
Right. They're not crushed.
Let it make its own nooks and crannies, whatever. So.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. So I was looking through Kevin Messenger's, you know, Asian rat snakes because Ganyosoma has been kind of all the rage.
Oh, yeah.
For me lately. So I was looking at what he had written about Persimmum, and they had pictures of the habitat and stuff. And it would be pretty easy to replicate something like that.
Sure.
I think rhinos would probably be the one that I'd have to go all out for because, you know, unlike the chondros, they're always out. You know, they're always doing stuff. And the Jansenii, you know, it's sort of wasted on them in a way because they're not out a whole lot. And the Persimmum, I don't know exactly what those are going to be like, if they're going to be out like the rhinos are, if they're going to be a little more elusive like the Jansenii or what, but we're going to find out you know, soon. And they're going to get a setup that's going to be not like all out, you know, going to the nines with everything. It's going to be similar to the Jansenii cage where there is going to be live plants, there is going to be cork, there is going to be things. It's going to be naturalistic and not necessarily sort of the whole deal. So
yeah. And I feel like
actually on that note, I've been trying to hunt down crepe myrtle branches. You guys have crepe myrtles down there, I'm sure.
No. What is it? No? What is a crepe myrtle?
It's a tree, but technically it's a bush.
Okay.
And they're everywhere down here, and the wood is very hard.
What's it look like? while you look for the picture,
I'll look that up.
I will. Speaking of really hard, dense, beautiful trees, this show is also brought to you by the fine people of the Pacific Northwest, the Gendra, the PSP, the Puget Sound Pythons.
Let's see if I can find a close up of like the wood. Yeah, there we go.
Nobody knows coniferous trees better than the Puget Sound Pythons.
I think you probably do have these down here. You just don't realize that's what they are.
Yeah, Billy Jenkins says I have to have them.
A lot of people get them for, landscaping and stuff like that. So
okay. Oh, look, and Stefani's in the chat, and he's talking about hypomollendorfi. No, I have not seen that. And if I have, I need to get flicked in the head because that sounds fantastic. We're going to have to Google that next. Thanks, Mike.
So my parents have a 20-year-old tree in their yard that was there not long after their house got built, and that thing has gotten huge, and so they've decided that because it's covering so much of the grass and stuff on that side of the house, nothing's growing, so they're going to cut it down. So I got excited because that wood, like I said, is very hard, and it works. Like once it's dried out and it's no longer green, like that stuff is pretty damn sturdy. So I went and we cut off, like, imagine this tree, but it's like twice the size.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see my mouse or not.
Yeah, we can.
But
see.
Like, there's sort of 3 sections similar to this right here. We just cut off one of these and let the freaking 30 feet of that fall. And then I went and took and cut all these little forks and stuff that were in some of these thicker branches. And cut them into these sections, and I cut little straight pieces too. And what I think what I'm planning to try to do is those manzanita perches that I get off eBay that have the little wing nut and washers.
Right.
I'm going to try to make those out of these crepe myrtle branches.
Oh, excellent.
See, I took apart.
I don't think I have that by me, man.
I don't know, dude.
I don't think I have that by me. I think that's.
I actually really like them. They're really neat. They're just, they're I don't think they're not native for sure, but people plant them everywhere down here. And so I'm like been waiting, like Googling when people trim their crepe myrtle trees every year. And it usually looks like it's spring. So I've been like waiting for them to come trim the ones outside the building at work and like steal all the branches and take them home.
Yeah, dude, I don't have anything like that by me. Maybe north of me, maybe up by Jenkins area, but definitely not by me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because like I would know if it was flowering like that.
Their bark is really like paper thin. Let's see if you can get out of here.
See, look at that. Hold on a second. Can you zoom in on that tree right there?
This one that I'm on?
Yeah, the one that you're on. Can you zoom in on that?
I don't know. What happens? What is this button? What does that even do? What?
Because I have a tree that's right behind me that looks very similar to that, but I've never seen it bloom ever. So if they have those bright red and pink flowers, then it is not what's behind me.
I think they've got different colors because there's different varieties. But...
Interesting.
There he is. So, anyways, I'm going to see how that works out. I got to figure out how I'm going to sort of cure them and dry them and stuff like that and make them work. But if that's the case, and if it does work out, well, then I'll probably end up starting to sell some because they got an entire other tree they still have to cut down. And
nice.
I'm going to go through and...
That'll be cool, man. That'll be cool.
Put them together.
I'm actually probably this weekend, there's a park by me that's got a ton of pine trees. So I'm going to go and just steal a bunch of needles and some leaf litter and pine cones so I can dry them out and use them for some of the montane rattlesnakes. And I got this idea for like the pine and the coniferous action from our guest tonight, Mr. Cody Bartolini.
Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee.
He muted himself.
Am I muted?
No, you're good. You're good. You're in.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I was muted. I was just waiting for you guys to be done. That was a perfect segue.
That's what I'm here for. So what's up, Cody, man?
Oh man, just a lot, always a lot. But yeah, I tuned in right when I heard you talking about pine needles and pine cones and stuff, and we obviously you've been to our place and know that we're in oak pine forest, kind of like sand hills and stuff. So we have no shortage of pine needles, but what my thing is, I would like to be able to try to collect them more clean than us raking them up, because you get a lot of other stuff. So I'm thinking about spreading out some sort of net levitated off the ground just a little bit to
air
catch
catch.
those pine. Yeah, so you could get some clean ones in there, for also because for walkways and planters and stuff just around property, instead of us using cypress mulch or whatever for a decorative effect. A lot of garden things are kind of you'll see when you're on like the turnpike and you stop at one of those gas stations, you see them using pine needles instead of mulch in their planters and stuff, and it seems to be like kind of a renewable, less impactful way to dress things up. So instead of us using mulch for decorative things around the property too, is like we have so many pine trees. If we could just clean up those needles a little bit, we could make, we could just repurpose that, for those things. And, because you could go buy bales of clean stuff, but you got to pay for that. We're like, we got pine trees everywhere. So we could just figure out how to do it. It would be good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Kevin said crepe myrtles don't do great in South Florida, which is surprising because they freaking love it here.
There you go. That answers why I haven't seen it, why I didn't know what it was. Thank you, Kevin.
I got a whole box of those little perches I cut, so I'm anxious to see if I can make them work.
Yeah, I got the idea for the needles and pine cones and stuff from Cody's price eye enclosure, and he had some little, dare I say, sapling evergreen sprouts coming out and pine needles, and I saw he had some oak limbs that he cut that had some lichens on them and stuff. I'm like, man, that's great. I don't know if it's going to do well in my room, but I figure if anything, I'll try, and then I can always try and make fake stuff, because now the world is our oyster in terms of making fake decor. So why not?
Yeah, we're lucky being where we are, because there are people that would pay good money just to have the branches that fall off the trees naturally around here, because the lichen that's on them. You can that price enclosure. We did the rock work and all the painting on the fake lichen and stuff on there. That turned out pretty realistic. Took a lot of time and unhealthy amounts of hours staring at Google images of lichen and montane pine forest and stuff like that. And, so you can make, painted lichen look real, but it takes a lot of time. It's not a, substitute for the real thing. Because it's really hard, because if you look at lichen regularly, right, it's like, it's just abstract, and it's all kind, it's imperfectly perfect. And when you're trying to do that as somebody who has OCD tendencies, you're overthinking how the lichen looks, and you're like, how do I make it look natural? How do I make it look natural? And then you make it look unnatural because you're trying too hard. And, it takes a lot of like letting go to just kind of go with the painting, just kind of just like, whatever happens. And then it ends up making it look a lot more natural. Because of that, when we did you've seen that price guy enclosure in person, and the lichen painted on that, and we used acrylic paints, and tried to pick realistic looking lichen colors, and then cut little sponges to lichen shapes, and then just dab them a little bit, and then dab them on the rock, and then you just kind of feel it out from there, and you're like, okay, I kind of like that. But then the next one can't look anything like the other one. They have to look kind of uniform, like you're finding on the same, because you've been to like the habitat and stuff. You'll see like there's a big old blotch of lichen, and then there's like a bunch of sporadic like spatters of lichen all around it, and and it makes it look totally natural. If you do too many of the same looking shapes, it looks unnatural. So you have to kind of Pia and I were working on that enclosure with the painting together, where she would do some lichen And then I would do it, you know, we would take turns rotating who's good, because there was a lot to do on there. And that way it didn't look too much, it didn't look too similar, because two different people with two different kind of like perceptions on how they think it should look good. So it makes it more natural looking. But it's hard. It's you know, like Ari Flagel at Reptile, you know, he's done so many of those, like all the enclosures there, you know, all the rock work and cement work and carving, you know, fake trees out of cement and painting them and stuff. And it's a real art form to do it, to make it look like nature. It's tough.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to ask you on that price line enclosure. So I'm going to pull some pictures up in a little bit, but I was going to ask, did you guys like spray foam in the rock walls and then carve them, or did you do like paneled foam and adhere it inside?
So we did paneled foam and adhered it inside. I made a little Instagram reel on my personal Instagram that just has a quick like kind of start
time lapse thing.
End. Yeah. Okay. But I was gonna put, because I have a lot of pictures and videos of the process of when we did it, and I've just been meaning to splice it together. I was gonna put it on our Patreon, you know, or you know, maybe make a little mini clip or something on that for the Instagram or whatever. But basically, you know, to start it off, we took the 1/2 inch purple foam or pink foam that you get at a Home Depot, insulation foam, you know,
right,
and cut it to the size of the Exoterra that we were using for that particular build, and it was an 18 by 2 by 36. I got those measurements all back. We'll go 36 by 18 by 24 high.
Okay,
what is maybe a little bit more understandable than what I said, but. And then you start it maybe 3 or 4 inches, you know, from the bottoms. That way you can put your false bottom, your substrate mix, you know, whatever you end up using, ABG or something else. And because even for those like pine forest habitats or even desert habitats, I think, you know, misting and stuff for the plants at the very least, you know, you got to do it. So having somewhere for that water to go and be easily drained out, you know, these ones are internal systems, so there's no like bulkhead where the water could go out. So basically I would do a little PVC pipe, 1/2 inch PVC pipe, cut it to 3 or 4 inches, you know, put it there. I don't silicone it there. I just put it there, put the false bottom, so your clay pebbles, you know, around it. That'll hold it in place. Then you put your substrate mixture around that. That holds it in place a little bit more. And then I would put a little bit of saran wrap, ball it up into a ball and stick it into the PVC pipe so the dirt doesn't go in. And then I'll just put, you know, a piece of cork over that or a rock or something to hide that. So whenever you need to use it, you just pull off the cover, you know, put a little hose in there and siphon it out. And so you'd want to have like that 3 or 4 inches gap. So you know, you have all that. So then, you know, we measured the purple foam, silicone that, cut it for the 3 sides, you know, the sides and the back, and let that cure. And then what we would do was, Pia was able to get a bunch of styrofoam boxes from work that they get supplies, lab supplies and stuff like that, and they throw out the foam. And so she just bring the boxes back, and we have these hot wire cutting tools that we get from the hot wire foam factory. And nice. you could you know, just the website I think is hotwirefoamfactory.com, and they have you know, pretty much everything you need there to make awesome, you know, synthetic rocks. And they have what's called a exterior foam coat. It's basically like their version of, you know, cement designed to adhere to foam better than, you know, the standard cement that, you know, or
and hot wire makes that.
Hot wire makes that. Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be a link that you can navigate to.
Is it kind of like dry lock?
Yeah, kind of like that, but it's their own special thing that they make in-house that's, you know, it adheres to the foam to where when it cures, then you have less cracking and flaking, or no cracking and flaking. But, you know, a lot of the other stuff, you have to apply multiple coats, keep going back. And and touching it up where stuff will fall off or whatnot. So this stuff seems to be pretty good. I've never used the dry lock. I've never done any like I guess the traditional ways of doing it, because when we started doing it, I learned about the hot wire foam factory, you know, before we started sculpting those rocks and making rocks, and I actually learned about that through a person who has a YouTube channel. It's called Lizard Landscapes, and
interesting.
The guy, they're really good tutorials. You know, he talks about the hot wire foam factory, talks about the cutting tools, and that's where we actually learned about that. And he does, you know, the setups for, you know, like a bearded dragon setup or a leopard gecko setup, but the principles can be scaled up, you know, and they're really well done videos, and he really explains like into detail how it all works, and you know, attaches the links to the hot wire foam factory and whatnot. And that guy's YouTube channel, I don't know if he's consistently posting anymore, but the videos are still up, and that's Lizard Landscapes. Yeah, I've learned a whole lot just from watching that. But that exterior foam coat's really, really nice. You can mix it watery or thick, you know, for like an intricate thing like the Pricey I build. There was a lot of nooks and crannies and stuff that if you that were really close together, that if you didn't mix it a little bit wet, that you wouldn't be able to drip that cement stuff, you know, into the cracks. And then you'd have to do a couple layers of that and let it fully cure over 24 hours or so, and then do it again, and then do your touch ups, and then, you know, go into painting and stuff. But like each one of those in that Pricey I exhibit, each one of those little layers of rock and everything is you know, just an individually sculpted piece of foam. And then what we would do is we would just piece them in there. You know, we had the end in mind of, we wanted the animal to be able to use it like a Pricey I would use it, you know, be able to wedge itself down in the crevices, but be able to bask at different points of where they, you know, on the rocks. And you know, usability plus like exhibition quality.
Sure.
And not just make it pretty for us to look at, but, you know, usable for the animal, let them do natural behaviors and stuff like that. And you know, so each little rock slate that we carve, you go, okay, I like this one right here, and then we would use it's called Loctite Power Grab. And we would just do a little bead along the backside of the foam and just squish that on that backboard of the, you know, the purple foam first. That way, if you ever needed to redo it or whatever, you could just, you know, pop off the back. So like, it's all sealed together now, but if you had to break it down for whatever reason, start again, or you know, something that you just didn't like, you could you know, you could redo it. It would be a challenge, but it would,
more easily done.
It would be a challenge in just the regards that you have to break it up and pop it off, but it's just silicone. So it's easier done than some other stuff. But then you would just kind of like carve it how you like it, how you think it works, and then you basically, you know, it's like a puzzle, you know, that you are kind of creating along the way, making basking sites and stuff, and then you just gotta figure out what you're going to put in there and what kind of colors the rocks you want to make, you know, like, is it going to be, you know, a desert setup? Is it going to be something that a more tropical species is going to go in, where maybe some grayish rocks are going to look nicer versus reddish rocks? We've got a pair of Tanaha altus speckled rattlesnakes, you know, the infamous white specks. And I'm really excited to create they're young, they're yearlings, and I'm really excited to put them into a nice display where we can you know, do the rocks white and spray them, you know, like basically what we would do is
marble them to look like the animal.
So how you do that is you would just, you know, you do the rock work, and then what we call the poor man's paint gun. You put your acrylic paints with some water, so we do white, and then shake it up, and then just spray the rocks with that. Then you got your white base, and then you just put black acrylic paint in another bottle, shake it up, and that spray gun, just a hand sprayer, is going to give you that speckling that's just going to look like, you know, the granite rocks, and really, I bet it's going to look so good. And with those animals in there, they're just going to disappear amongst it. So it's fun creating the environments, you know, for the animals to just disappear right in front of your eyes.
Oh yeah. And Richard Schubert saying, do not use hot wire on urethane foam and just use it for styrofoam. And people ask, why? What's the difference between urethane? Urethane is basically spray foam. And if you use a hot wire, you're making cyanide gas. So don't do that, boys and girls. Richard says,
not good.
Urethane, polyurethane, Gorilla Glue, most all expanding foam is bad juju for hot wire cutting. So there you have it. And for those of you who are feeling bougie, Mike Stefani says Zoopoxy for the win. So,
yeah, I wondered how you guys got that consistent color of like rock and stuff on those foam backgrounds. Now that makes sense. I thought maybe you guys had like hand painted them that way, but
it was it was kind of a multi, because you could kind of change the color and look as you as you like it or don't like it. It was like, oh, that's a little too light. Well, let's add a little bit more black to the gray. Oh, that's a little bit too much, and then what was ended up happening was the gray and the black, we sprayed it pretty thick, and it would pool. The black would pool in little divots in the rocks that we had that were just like, like natural rock. And it sat there for a minute. And then you take a paper towel and you would just stick it in the water, and the paper towel would just absorb it. And then what was left was this kind of black. It looked very natural. It looked like if you were out in the wild and you just saw like, divots in a cave or whatever that, just the sediment and stuff kind of pooled in there.
Yeah.
Looked very, very natural, but clean, and next time you guys are out here, just you pay attention to that now, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that it was an unplanned thing when we were painting. It's like, oh man, I'm going to screw that up. There's like so much black puddling in these corners. And I'm like, when I did the little paper towel trick, I was like, oh, you know what? That black looks pretty good there. I'm just going to leave that because that ended up looking more natural. So like, as you're going, you got to kind of feel it out along the way, and kind of, it really, every single time I do one, it's like, there's things that you really like about whatever build you do. And then there's things that you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because, some of these things are permanent once you do it.
That's what I learned with the dart frog enclosures after doing foam backgrounds on some of those. Was like the first one, I was like, yeah, I'm not very happy with that, because you don't realize how much that spray foam expands.
Oh yeah.
You have to do it multiple times to really have a better grasp of like, okay, when I do it in this spot, it's going to expand this much. I can expect to trim off, 15%, 20%, whatever. The first time I did it, I used entirely too much, and I was like, what the hell? And ended up trimming it, and it got better, but like, it's that first time, and I think it's going to be, for anybody, it's going to be a little rough, and it's going to be, it's trial and error. It takes practice, I think.
Yeah. And Stefani was saying, excuse me, use dry brushes too. Like when stuff's still wet, use a dry brush to like give the texturing. And like that stuff always looked great. I know Marcus used Zoopoxy for a lot of his enclosures, and he would do the dry brushing thing. And then my buddy Chris was telling me today that I guess what you do is if you have the pink foam or the blue foam, the insulation foam, you take tin foil, and you roll up tinfoil either in a ball or in like a hot dog shape, and you make it real hard and dense, and then you press the tinfoil, the crinkled tinfoil, into the foam before you dry lock it or Zoopoxy it or whatever. And he said that came out really cool, looking like actual like wavy cuts in the rocks. So I thought that was
probably take a decent sized chunk of like lava rock too and do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, something like that, like lava rock, porous rock. Yeah, hell yeah. So. Oh man, we jumped into that quick, didn't we?
Yeah.
Diving headfirst, love it. So for those of you,
at some point when I'm not lazy, I will take the time to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean you've done it before. You just gotta, you know what it is you gotta start, and then once you start, you'll finish. You know what I mean?
I don't know that I will.
So my problem is getting it started. Like I procrastinate.
Like the books, like I'll start a book and it'll take me like 6 months to finish a pretty small book because I'll read, 20 pages a month.
Yeah, the more that you do, obviously the more comfortable you get, the more you kind of know how the next one's going to go, or things that didn't go well on a last build, you're going to, avoid those on the next one. And, I could move through them a little bit faster. Now I know my trigger finger on the foam gun, when you're doing the actual foam, the great stuff, foam, like to be very light on the finger, because when I first started doing them, it just like it comes out so fast. And then now they have the guns that are a little bit more controllable, that doesn't keep going after you put your finger off the trigger, but a lot of them still do. And just going, because that foam, like you said, really does expand a lot more than you think, and you put too much in one area, and then just like I've had it to where with zoom out enclosures, I put so much foam on it that I had foam pushing through the silicone coming out the back. You're doing little ghost, looking like little ghost wavy things coming out the back, when they dry. And it ended up being fine. It didn't end up blowing out the glass and stuff, but I definitely know people who have put too much foam in there, and then once it cures, if it's in a smaller tank or whatnot, that it busts the glass in it. So you got to be really, the more you do, the more you kind of know, okay, this is how much foam I need to put in here, and this is how hard I have to pull the trigger to be able to, get the right amount of foam to come out. And it just takes practice. What we're going to end up with the new exhibit building that's going up when we do the enclosures, it's going to be a lot of that stuff, and we're gonna have to do multiple enclosures at the same time, because doing one at a time, it just takes so long for each process, for the curing process, the carving process, and then going back and forth, like adding different things, or it definitely takes a lot of time. And if you do it multiple enclosures at once, obviously it takes a lot more time. So you got to just, for us, it's going to be just go for it and not be. I'm not as much of a perfectionist about it anymore as I was, because I've learned that even when you do it, what you think is bad in your mind ends up looking pretty good, and everybody else thinks it looks really good. Because I'm always like, man, this looks like shit, and everybody's
it's because
like,
know the imperfections, Yeah. You see where you made a mistake, when in actuality there is no real mistakes, and it's going to look good regardless.
Happy accidents.
Yeah, happy accidents, right?
Yeah, man, like the little black puddles were happy accidents, and I was stoked of those.
It's funny, man. This conversation's booming with the group chat, man. We got some great guys and gals in there chatting up about dry lock and cocoa fiber, and this is great. This is isopods, and man, I love this show.
Like, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy doing it with the dart frogs. It was just one of those things where, like, waiting for it to dry and then having to carve it, and then carving too much than what I had initially needed to, and then coating it all with silicone, and then dusting it all with the Eco Earth, and just the whole process. I'm like, this, and then you got to wait a month for plants to really root and take off and get anything out of their system that they had. And I'm just like, I just want to get the frogs in there and be done.
The thing that drives me nuts is, like you said, taking too much foam off, like where I'll go just a little bit more, and I think I'll have the look that I want, and then I'm like, oh no, I took off too much and I can't put it back. It's like I'm gonna just have to live with my decision.
Well, I was always told if you're gonna do spray foam for the first time, and you're gonna use at least one, maybe two canisters, whatever you want to in your mind you think you're gonna need, right? Buy another one. Get a piece of cardboard, right? Take a Sharpie marker, measure out the size of your back glass or whatever, draw it on the cardboard in your yard or in the street, and then practice your spray foam shooting on the cardboard, because you just throw it away, and that way you're not, you kind of like, you're doing a little warm up before you actually use it on the glass or the PVC or what have you. So.
No, that's a good pro tip. Yeah, or just like you have your extra can just in case you use too much, but at least figure out how much foam is going to come out when you initially do it, especially if it's the first time that you're doing it, because like it comes out so fast. And if you don't have a really strong game plan of exactly where you want to put that foam, if you kind of just think you know where you want to do it,
winging it.
When that foam comes out, you go into panic mode, and you're just like, oh god, I got to use this can now. I can't just let it sit, or else it's going to clog up the hose. you got to full send when you do it. So really make sure you got that plan in place, at least have a general idea of where you want to go with it. And, you know, and you're going to make mistakes. You're just going to make mistakes, and then you're just going to learn from them. And, you know, that's it. They're non-fatal mistakes. So, you know, failing forward.
Yeah, failing forward. That's good. Mike Gillen is saying for desert setups, the spray foam, grout, and dry brush has worked really well for him. I can say I've used the dense styrofoam and dry brush and grout and to make some like rock escarpment type stuff for girdle tails. And I'm personally not going to do grout anymore because I felt like, although the grout gave great texture and it was the right colors and it just looked really good, it made it so heavy. It was just so damn heavy.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you're gonna see with the Hot Wire Foam Factory's exterior foam coat. Not a sponsor, but they could be if they chose to be, and we would certainly love them to sponsor us. Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be some weight to it, but just because big glass tank or whatever, I think you could probably do pretty good if you did it in like a herb cage, like a Doug Bar herb cage. I don't know if they're calling them that anymore, but you know, I think it's JPM Reptilia that is a distributor for Doug Bar's enclosures, and they're really good. We use a lot of them. That's where our custom Mamba displays, you know, were built from Doug and them. And you know, I think that you could do those foam structures and everything and all those, and those would be a nice light enclosure to use for that. But the exterior foam coat is like far lighter than any of that other stuff, and seems to be a lot more durable and easier to clean when we're spraying it off and you know, scrubbing it out. And that's another big thing there too. You know, when you do those kind of setups, make sure you don't put a diseased animal in there, because you know, sanitizing that after, you know, something goes in there that has something is a nightmare. You know, something like Cryptosporidium, it may be better to just you know, bust out all the old stuff and
like a sanitize it. Playground for crypto.
Yeah. So it's one of those things to consider, you know, as you're doing this, is like how are you building it to, you know, to clean it. And you know, you may have to come to terms with if something gets it, and you actually, you know, are some of the few that test and look for those things that you know, it's like, hey, are you willing to destroy all your hard work if something goes in there, or are you just going to sanitize, reuse, and hope for the best? You know, so, but they're gorgeous nonetheless. You know, like we're going to do it, and you know, no doubt we've seen diseased animals in the past, and we'll see diseased animals in the future, but hopefully we'll catch them in quarantine before they go into something like that. But stuff slips through the cracks all the time, you know, and animals end up testing, you know, or getting something after fact. You learn that they actually had it, but they were testing, you know, false negatives and whatnot. And you know, it just happens. Zoos deal with it, you know, more than you would think, you know, because all these animals have these diseases that date back millions of years that are designed to go to those animals, and all these zoos quarantine and stuff. And you know, I know of a few zoos right now that are dealing with a couple different things: paramyxovirus, Cryptosporidium, and you know, and they have very strong quarantine procedures in place with on-site veterinarian staff. And you know, so it's like it doesn't mean that somebody is like a bad keeper or something that ends up getting something, but it happens. And you know, what do these zoos do with these $1 million Rockscape zoo exhibits? You know, you can't just tear everything down and start over again. You just have to sanitize and leave empty and hope for the best. But that becomes the problem with your bioactive setups and stuff, is if you get mites or you know, like that, and you have isopods in there, you know, if you're going to use prevenamide in there, probably going to kill your isopod colony, and that's just going to be the lesser of two evils, I guess, of breaking down the entire thing, taking out all your plants and whatever. The isopods may not die. They might not all die. That stuff's made for mites and ticks, but it is permethrin. So, and they are a bug or a crustacean or something, whatever they are, you know. What are they? They're something.
Lane crabs.
Yeah.
Brain bugs.
Oh, really? Well, the old roly-poly.
Billy Jenkins says that I condone playing in the street. That I do, Billy Jenkins. That I do.
After the streetlights have come on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to shout out to Brendan Meyer too, because he just did a Baird's enclosure, and
yeah,
that thing looked sharp. That's like those and corns would be a fun one to do that with. Like I know, like Edisto Serpentarium, and I've seen some other zoos and stuff. They do like an old barn sort of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't you say you were gonna do like a big 3 foot? Not big 3 foot, but a 3 foot enclosure for corns or rat snakes with like the rusty farm equipment and stuff.
Eventually, I don't know when that'll happen. It'd be cool to do, but
just get that in the living room, man. Where those Renatamea used to be. Just put a nice 3 foot black box in there with like the hay from the barn and
I'm
rusty
not
tools.
In charge of what's allowed outside of my room. So
I know.
It's art by committee in that aspect.
Just keep letting her play with the rhinos, and she'll come around.
I feel like if I was going to do that, I'd have a better shot of getting a rhino display out than anything else.
Nice.
But the rhinos would be perfect for it.
Yeah.
We're talking rhino vipers or rhino rat snakes?
No, rhino rat snakes.
Yeah, rhino rat snakes. Yeah, man, that'd be awesome. Get some big leafed, variegated, like big green wide suckers, and then put like a little Buddha statue in there, make it look like all creeper vine, and that'd be cool, man.
Mark Gravia, have it crawl up the back.
Yeah. Be the way to do it.
I like that look that you guys are talking about, that you'll see at zoos and places of the old, rustic barn with farm equipment in there for your corn snake and your rat snakes. Throw a good old timber rattlesnake in there too for good measure, and
sure,
it's a cool setup. We may do something like that on the new building just because I know it's a look and it's out there, but it's not super prevalent and it's fun. And for the general public around here, that we're in Melrose, Florida, so we're outside of Gainesville, but we're still in the country. There's quite a bit of country folk here, so they could they could level with that.
Yeah, they may even donate some of their rusty equipment. And since we have Cody here and he is a Florida boy, we should ask him if he believes.
That's what I was just about to say. Is that he said timber? Ask Cody.
Yeah.
Oh no, the ones here in Florida are tricky data, so all day long. They're can breaks as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
It's like
I'm wearing the shirt right now.
We believe.
It's pretty much like all us chondro nerds are still calling them chondros, even though that's been far removed. You just don't want to let it go, regardless of what science or whatever says. It may be ignorant and stubborn.
We're bringing it back.
Yeah, it should be.
You got the shirt on?
Should be.
I do.
Show the shirt.
Want that. I've seen that shirt. I would like that shirt.
No, not that shirt.
Let me go back to the side. I'm doing some late night work, so that's I've got it on.
You'll have to post the picture, but
stand up, boy. Show that shirt off.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's the shirt that I saw on your story. Somebody's story.
Yes.
This is weird.
Is Justin gonna flash us?
Yes, he is. It says, I want to believe.
Take that hoodie off, Justin.
And it has a silhouette of a canebrake. And it says, Atricodatus on top.
Trichidatus. Potato. No, but I mean, you could.
There it is.
Yeah, that's a cool shirt.
I want to believe.
I believe. I don't want to believe. I believe.
I believe.
Yeah, I mean, if you sat me down, or anybody that's really a believer in the cane breaks versus the actual northern timbers and stuff, you'd all day long you go cane break, timber, cane break, even though it's all timber now. It's just like they're clearly cane breaks in Florida, and out west of Texas, still cane breaks. Until you start going up to where they actually start looking like timbers, that's when I start considering them timbers. That's the
thing is, like, you don't see where they start to sort of transition. like you would see with like yellow rats to black rats as you go upstate in South Carolina. Like they do progressively seem to get darker.
Yeah.
I've never seen a canebrake that kind of looked like a timber or a timber that kind of looked like a canebrake. It was like, it's very clearly either a canebrake or a timber.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back. They never left. Damn it. Yeah. And I'm sorry, man. Like I am not a taxonomist, but if you can have Lepidus lepidus and Lepidus clobberi, like there's no reason why you can't have Horridus, excuse me. Horridus horridus and Horridus atricodatus.
Yeah, I say Horridus. That's my preferred. That's my preferred pronunciation of it. The Trichidatus, I think. Either Trichidatus with a hard A or Trichidatus with a hard A, but it just depends on whatever comes out of my mouth. However it comes out. A Trichidatus is a little easier for me to say, I guess.
I'm waiting for Scott to chime in and say Atricodatus.
Is Nipper's not a believer, is he?
No, he is not a believer. No, you know what? He is they're the same animal on paper, but there is a regional phenotype and or race. So that's his stance.
Well, it's like we could get into, I mean, this is a real slippery slope, the both Rheopsis, the two-line forest pit vipers, the speckled forest pit vipers, and so on. That whole genus, recently or semi-recently got, lumped in with, or they're both ROPs now.
It's ridiculous.
And, when I think of both ROPs, I think of these heavy-bodied, non-prehensile-tailed lance head vipers, huge. Some of them not so big, but they have a general body type, look, blah blah blah. Both Rheopsis, they're laterally compressed. They're like a Cook's tree boa, Amazon tree boa, prehensile tail, very lean, compared to like a Bothrops or a Bothriechis. And just their physical features. It's regardless of genetics or DNA and stuff, like just their physiology is much different than a Bothrops. You could tell that they're related, they are the genus now, so I guess more than related, they are that according to some people. But a lot of our tags, I've got some display tags that say Bothrops tanniatus, and then our original ID tags that have our QR numbers with our records on them are still both Rheopsis. Who haven't reprinted it, and as far as I'm concerned, that's what they are. And some other scientist needs to go back there and challenge that, or taxonomists, and put them back in there, because it would make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, that's like me personally with jumping vipers. The new name is Metlapilcolatus, which I actually had to type out so that I could say it correctly. That's a horrible name. I'm sure that they deserve to have a different nomenclature, but Metlapilcoltlus is
Mexicoltlus.
Yeah. No, but it's not. There's no X. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like I just think it's a bad word.
Because Mexicoltlus is a totally different one. That's more of Ophryagus.
Oh, yeah. You're thinking of the other viper that's more south. Sorry, but these what was it was Atripoides? No, what was
Atripoides.
That's right. Yeah, like that's a fine name. That's a good name, but
Atripoides mexicana.
Yeah,
or Mexicanus. I don't know if it was Mexicana or Mexicanus.
Yeah, I think it's Mexicanus. Yeah.
I got one of those. I had a Mexicanus that I got from the San Antonio Venomous Reptile show in 2006 that was tied to, it wasn't tied to IHS there, but IHS was being held in San Antonio in 2006, and the San Antonio Venomous show was there too. And I remember I picked up a Mexicanus from Randall Berry for $200, but he was still working at the old poor man's Bushmaster, and that was a good snake, man. Just a big old head, and just big stocky little 3-foot Bushmaster, little poor man's Bushmaster. They're so cool, and you don't really see them around too much anymore. Occasionally, they're floating around from time to time. We don't have one. I'd love to get them, if next time they become available. but they're cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Really cool.
How many Ophriekas do you guys at now?
We have 4.
I freaking love those things, dude.
Yeah, so does Derek.
I know. Derek's part of the reasons why I love them so much.
Yeah, we're probably gonna. Derek's still. We have because as you guys know, our former team member, but still team member in spirit, and whenever he's around, Derek Dykstra, he's going through the academy for Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to, eventually be an investigator that's going to be, one of the agents that come and inspect our facilities and all of that. And it's good to get a good one, who really understands reptiles in there. And his family comes from a long line of law enforcement stuff. So it's a perfect position, perfect field for him to be in. But when he took off for the academy, we ended up with quite a few of his animals from his collection, some cool little montane rattlesnakes, some montane vipers. We got a Godman's viper, the Seraphitiodon Godmani or Godmani. It's a really, really cool little Guatemalan, montane snake, and some other really neat stuff. He still has a couple of things, but just kind of downsized his collection for management. He's got, Bushmasters. I don't know if he's got more than one now or not, but he's got his Ophriekas, and I think he might have 4 or 5 for sure. And he's got some real nice ones. Ours are nice, but he's got, some of his phenotypes are really getting that really nice, deep green color and that rich green color and stuff. So I assume, I don't know what sexes that we're working with. I raised them from babies we got them in.
I remember you had them in like 2019. We had baby ones when I was there.
Yeah. Those are the same ones. And they were, I think we got them in 2018. So they're definitely ready to breed. I mean, they're a small snake. When we got them, they were really, really, really tiny, and they're still really tiny. You would think that it was a yearling snake of some other species, but they're not a tremendously large animal, and the babies are super tiny. I remember when they were shipped to us, we had 6 of them. We have 4 now because 2 had died. They did all right, but they were fresh born, and when we had them sent to us from a serpentarium in Texas, and when they sent them, they put 3 to a container, a little deli cup with an air plant in there for them to anchor to, and 3 of these snakes were very comfortable on this air. It was not a big air plant either. Wow. But 3 of these snakes were very comfortable looking on this air plant, and they were just tiny little things. They were eating pinky parts, and we were doing reptilinks, so we were doing the little lizard links, the micro links, and the frog links, and they were eating
baby squams then.
Yeah, they definitely smaller than baby squams.
Whoa!
Oh wow!
Very tiny snakes, and so very sensitive. I'm really honestly thrilled that we ended up with 4 out of the 6. The 2 that had died were doing all right, but one of them ate, and then had died within that week, and I don't know what happened there, but
sometimes it just goes that way, man.
Sometimes not every tomato makes it to the salad bar.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. That's the price we pay for having so many. It's bound to happen.
They were a donation to us too, so that also was nice too. It didn't sting so bad. I mean, it stung because of what they were, but financially, it was not as big of a sting as if you were to purchase them. They're not a cheap animal.
Yeah. Richard had asked about blue and Solaris too. I know it seems those used to be not easy to get, and then all of a sudden it seems like within the last handful of years, like I've seen them super cheap.
I feel like it comes
to price a ton.
I feel like it also comes to the exporters knowing what people want or thinking they know what people want. Because in the past, we would get blues, you know, the quote unquote Komodo, even though they're probably not from the actual island of Komodo.
Right.
And then Wetter Island, which is the yellows, and then just your regular Abalabras. And we'd get them all in the same bag. They would just throw them all in there together. And now it's like only blue, only yellow, and you're hard pressed to find a standard green one.
I don't even see the Waitars.
Yeah.
Available.
It's been a couple years. So
I think I saw some blue Insularis at, I think, the last Repticon that Jake and I went to. I would say they were like $100, $150. Like, they were cheap.
Well, I know Underground just had someone was, I guess, moving around some of their collection stuff, and Underground was selling a adult proven breeder pair that were hands down the biggest Insularis I've ever seen. They were bigger than most standard Abalabras, and like 10 or 15 captive bred babies that were blue at a mom, straight up baby blue, smaller than a cigarette. And I think they were selling for $300 each because they were captive. So
I don't know, it's wild.
That's a really good price on those. I wish I would have saw that at that time, because I would have been all over those. We have two Insularis here. We have a mustard green one that's really attractive, and as adult female, real good size. And then we have a young. I think it's a male just by eyeball in the tail. But it could be, it could be a female too. But it's a blue one. It's a neonate. It was one of Derek's snakes. We just wanted to eat, brown anoles and lizards and stuff for a minute. But now I've got it fuse feeding on pinky mice, and it's not too stubborn of a feeder, but it's a nice snake. It's blue for sure. It's not as blue as, but it's still a neonate. It may end up getting that rich blue. They're kind of like a pale blue when they're little neonates. And I guess it just depends on the individual. Some of them are bluer than others, but it's an attractive snake. I'd love to get some more blue ones. I'd love to get the true yellow ones. The female that we have is not what I would consider a true yellow. She is like a mustard, and that, I don't know if she's a hybrid with Alba Labris, because we were looking at pictures of hybrids between Alba Labris and Insularis, and it looked, the resulting animal may have just been that picture, but it looked just like the female that we had, that's that mustard green. So I don't know for sure. I know that we have the one that we have is very attractive, and she's a great display animal. I would just breed her with an Insularis. Yeah, obviously, I'm not gonna do trashy hybrid stuff with those snakes, but I would represent it with it's supposed to be Insularis, but I saw a picture of a hybrid that looks similar. Try to pair it with. I mean, I don't know if this ends up being a male blue. If they breed, they're both Insularis. I don't know what that would end up looking like, but we have relationships with the few venom labs in the country that may need those animals for not because of a hybrid potential or whatever, but just Insularis. So we would just send them to them and not be worried about. What's that?
Oh, Mike Stefani was dipping out. I was just saying thanks.
Yeah, I mean, just let them know to the best of my knowledge that this is what it is, but that way we're not misrepresenting the animals, because I'm sure at some point we'll breed this female because she's so big and beautiful, and it would be, and it's fun to see babies and stuff, but
it'd be a shame not to.
Yeah, I mean, to friends that are capable to keep these permitted, or other professional private people that we know throughout the U.S. that we could vouch for sending stuff to venom labs or zoos is where the offspring would end up going. But I'd love to have an exhibit with the blue, this mustard female, and the true banana yellow Insularis, and maybe just do all females in there so they're not all breeding all the colors. I'd like to keep those colors pure, and then if we decide to breed them, move the female to the male's enclosure, vice versa, move them around to an isolated pair of that. But just so we could give the public, because they're beautiful. I mean, to see blue, yellow, green, and that mustard all together with the same snake. Just like I'd like to do a nice squamager, or I guess squamagera now, exhibit with some really choice examples of the species. I most likely get them from Alexander, England, and get a good. Yeah,
who else are you gonna get them from? Come
that
on.
or Red Stanberry. Red Stanberry produces some nice squams as well. But Alex or Red Stanberry, they've got really nice looking animals, and I'd like to support what they're doing and
Sure.
stuff. So but just have an exhibit with 10 of them in there, nice big one with all to really show why they call them variable bush vipers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
do you want to tell us a little bit about your Crotalus campbelli?
I don't really know much about it other than it was one of the snakes I got from that was in Derek's collection before he went off to FWC, and we were just lucky enough to to acquire that animal when he went off. But it's a phenomenal snake.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. I love how it sits in that I guess bromeliad or whatever that is, and it's just a species you don't hear about too often, you don't see too often, and you're one of the only guys I know that has one. So
yeah, I have no idea. It is a really, really cool snake, and it's like I don't know if it's it must be some sort of, it's like a dry looking bromeliad that we've got in the quarantine enclosure. It's got little spikes on it, kind of looks like some kind of a cactus you would see in its environment. One of those kind of like not really thorny, but kind of, what I'm saying. It's because the enclosure that it's in, I just don't want people to think like he's got a bromeliad in with a montane rattlesnake. It's
not a bromeliad. Forgive me. It's
it might be. It's some sort of
like an aloe plant or something.
I don't know. It's got more because it was one of our plants that we have outside. We have like basically botanical gardens now, and there's it had like legitimate roots. I know that the bromeliads will throw out roots to anchor to stuff, but this is more like rooty stuff. And I was like, what? This looks like something you would find in that kind of habitat that it would sit on and whatever. And I put it right next to the basking lamp there, and that little rattlesnake likes to curl up right on top of that and get right under the sun, and it looks just like how you might see one in the wild doing that, and it's just a basic quarantine enclosure. But I was looking for a place to put that plant, and I was like, it looks a little too rugged for any like the palm vipers. It looks a little bit more deserty than tropical, so I just threw that in there, and it threw a nice look to the setup, and the animal is really using that little plant, whatever it is.
It looks very similar to red aloe. I mean, I don't think it is red aloe, but
it's not an aloe for sure. It's got more of
similar to that.
It's like the leaves are more of a bromeliad, like a spiky bromeliad texture of a leaf, but it's more wispy. I don't know how to explain it, but it works. It works for the setup. And it'll probably die. It'll probably die. Not the rattlesnake. I mean, sure, at some point the rattlesnake will die, but I'll probably cook that plant by sitting it right under the basking site until but the snake likes to sit on it, so it's there for now.
Nice.
Anything new on the Bothriechis front?
No, not really. We have a few different neat species here, but we haven't acquired any new species. We've just kind of been working on growing the public side of things here, and basically throwing all of our funds at construction stuff and building stuff and all of that. But we were hoping for a litter of yellow blotch palm vipers, the Bothriechis are for around August, around Daytona Reptile Expo time, because that's when this particular female produced a litter of 9 for us in 2020. Yeah, that was a surprise to come home too. We were at the expo, and for the weekend came back, went in to check on the montane room, and I wasn't expecting babies. I had them up in like January, February of that year. But I didn't see any, courting behavior. The snakes, I never observed them sitting together. Doesn't mean nothing happened, because clearly something did. And so I separated them after a couple weeks, then put them back together. The female never went off food or anything, never exhibited signs. It was a pretty large female, and she didn't look like she was gravid or anything. So I was not expecting babies, and came back and looked in the enclosure and was staring a baby right in the face. And it took a minute to comprehend what I was looking at. And then there was, of course, the meltdown of like, oh my God, there are baby Arthur in here. And then the second thought was like, how long have they been in here? Like they could have been dried up, and it was over the weekend at some point. So we were really excited about that. A good majority of those babies ended up going to the Bronx Zoo. And we had paired up it was a repeat pairing with the same male in the beginning of the beginning of 2022. And the pair locked up, and it was a visual lock. And it was you were
good.
You were counting the babies in your head, which you shouldn't do, and nothing ended up ever happening. So we're in January of 2023, and she looks the same, eating and not looking gravid or anything like that. So we'll probably.
Did she look any different? Did she look any different after she dropped the first time, or did she look the same?
Man, she looked pretty close to the same. She didn't have that deflated look of she just gave birth. Yeah, she still stayed pretty robust. And literally, she ate right afterwards. That's how we were able to get the babies out, because she's one of our only Arthur that really have a really strong feeding response that'll just rip things off a forceps from you.
Nice.
And we were like, we can't try to fish these babies out with her, there, because she's going to swing. As soon as we touch one with the hook, she's going to swing in that direction, and she's going to kill a baby. So we fed her a rat. We stuffed a small rat in her mouth. And while she was chewing on the rat, we were fishing the babies out, and by the time she was finished with the rat, we had them all out, and then we hooked her out and put her in a can of water to hydrate and rinse off all that, all that goo from giving birth. And
now they're in that one pelletarium you have by your kitchen that's got the like fish and everything in it.
No, they're in the
that's the Bilineatus.
Oh, that's the Bilineatus. Excuse me. Okay, because I was going to say is I didn't know if how like thick or dense that enclosure was to try and find all the babies.
Yeah.
At that that paludarium was Taniata. There's Bilineata underneath them, and then the Taniata is the one that's above that. But yeah, no, they were. It was planted, but it had a type of peperomia vine that was growing in there that was really dense. And in the wintertime, I don't have automatic misters on those enclosures, and it's just been hand misting, because then we usually give them a nice good spray and let them drink for a good while on top of having water dishes in them, because they'll drink every single time you mist them. I know a lot of people will say as long as they've got a water bowl and they're hydrated, they're fine. But like a lot of these snakes are animals that in their environment, the water comes to them. They raise we were in Guatemala for 2 weeks, and we were in the cloud forests for a few days. We bounced around all over Guatemala, different habitats, but we were in cloud forest looking for Arthur. We found 3 in 3 days that we were there. And, it was in the early part of May. And I guess that was, what you would consider their summer, the beginning of the rain season there. It was still pretty dry. When we were about to leave from our trip, that's when the heavy rains started coming. We really, and we saw a lot of stuff, but we would have saw a lot more if we would have timed the rains just right. But also, it would have made travel and the expedition a little bit more challenging. So it wasn't bad. We found what we wanted to find out there, but
Yeah.
The water comes to these snakes, and if there's a pool of water, if they're by a river or something, obviously they're gonna dip their nose in there and get a drink. But it rains there so consistently, being up in the cloud forest, that they really never have to go anywhere for their water. And every time we miss them, I mean, you could get an adequate mist with a mist king and stuff, but if you're hand misting, you could really just hold that nozzle right next to their face and let them chug water. And we'll do that a couple times a week. I don't over mist them, but I will mist them, a couple times a week, few times a week. But it's a pretty heavy mist. Like it'll be 5 minutes of spraying that snake in the face, because it's just chugging the water. It's not like a little 9-second mist, and then be just to wet it down, because there's live plants in there. So we're watering the plants too. But if that snake's right there, it starts drinking off its scales, and I'll just let it. I basically will hold that nozzle on it until it stops drinking. It gets a good adequate drink. And man, keeping those temps. Well, in the middle or in the early part of May at night, where we were finding Arthur, it was in the 50s. It was chilly, and we found not a gravid female, but a female down in the riverbed, cruising around like a cottonmouth looking for frogs. And we got video of
That's
her
super cool.
in situ as we found her. And this animal was just as alert as it could be. It wasn't like it was slow from it being so cold. Like you could really, being in the animal's habitat, it's no lie when people are saying you really do have to keep the ambient cooler. These animals still need to be able to bask, and you have to, you can't just keep them at 60 degrees with nothing. We have UVA and UVB on our animals, and we have LED lights for the plant growth and everything. So, a lot of the montane palm vipers that we have, they have access to the basking sites, but they hardly ever use them. Sometimes the big female, when she was gravid, in hindsight, I noticed that she was basking a little bit more, and she has been using her basking site a little bit more than she normally does. I don't think it's anything like that she's gravid. I mean, I say that, and then there could be babies in there, in the next couple of days, and that would be phenomenal, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. It's been, a year. It's really time to pair them up again. So, and I'm going to do a repeat pairing of that one, just because the male that sired the last, we sent a lot of them to the wrong zoo, and I'd like to have some of that bloodline. We have a few males, we have a few females, represented in the collection, all unrelated to each other. And I would like to get a litter, from this female, from this male, keep some stuff, and then put a different male with her that's completely unrelated, and really try to get some genetically diverse stock here, because and we'll probably end up placing a lot of those animals in different zoos that we know work with montane snakes, just for risk management, assurance populations outside of our own facility, that whether they go on loan to us, from us to the facility, so we maintain ownership. And, there's other bloodlines of Arthur within AZA zoos that we can, get some extra diversity with and stuff. Because as we know, we're no stranger to, we've had disease go through the collection and stuff, and you would really hate to have all your Arthur, under one roof when some Armageddon thing goes down. You'd like to have those things somewhere else so you can withstand any bumps in the road that you go through. But so I'll probably throw her with the same male again, and he's a proven breeder. Well, I don't know what went on there, but that just happens. Maybe they breed every other year, every 2 years. It's a montane, snake, and they do things a little bit differently. Like some of these montane rattlesnakes and stuff, are not every year breeders. They may breed every other year. We were at the Venomous Herpetology Symposium, or the Venomous Herpetological Symposium, I'm not sure what they're calling it. If it's herpetology symposium or herpetological symposium.
Right,
but anyway, there was a guest speaker there that did Willardi obscurus research at one of these mountain ranges, where they're found, and has been doing it for a really long time. And he presented a lot of really, really fascinating data. And these animals are not producing every single year, maybe every other year or so. And it makes sense. And maybe that, and who knows what sperm retention looks like on these montane snakes, where it's a lot cooler, year round and stuff. And we know that these other reptiles, can hang on to sperm for a long time before they use it. So what's the capability of a montane snake to do the same thing until they feel like it's right, or conditions are right, and whatnot. So who's to say that, just by, upping the feeding or something like that, and they go, it's, this is a good time of year to reproduce, I'm going to use that sperm now. There's a lot of unknowns, it's really just kind of trial by fire with these things. But this group of ARFR that we've had, we got them in 2018, and all of those animals are still alive, knock on wood, and doing, outwardly very well, and look very good and robust and hydrated. I think hydration is super important with these things. I think, don't get them above 72 during the day for an ambient. You could have a hot spot that gets into the low to mid 80s, but just make sure it's in a large enough enclosure where that temperature isn't heating up the entire enclosure, that it's a little isolated pocket of heat that they could go to, and that they could get cool. And usually they're going to choose cool over the heat, unless, maybe either they're a gravid female, an animal digesting, or potentially an animal that's not doing too hot, that's seeking out heat to help, push itself through an illness or whatnot.
Sure.
And in the evening, during the summertime, I think you get down into the low 60s. Wow. No heat. We don't do any after dark. Our montane rooms at 62 degrees right now. All heat is off. When it gets really cold outside, the rooms will drop a little bit more than that. And we still feed them. We never feed heavy. All these montane snakes, we feed like every 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and really, if I can remember the last time I'm feeding them too much. And
when you are feeding them, is it smaller, like multiple smaller meals?
No, I'll do one. We'll either do like a young adult soft-furred mouse or rat. I don't know if they say the African soft-furred rats, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, are they a rat or are they a mouse? What even are they? It's sometimes
African soft-furred rodents.
Yeah, soft-furred rodents. They are cool. We have a cool little group that was bred for not being as bitey as they're known to be, picking the ones that aren't. The breeder had kind of refined the nippiness out of them, so we have soft-furreds that we could put our hands in in there and pick out pinkies without getting chomped on. So that's kind of nice. And so we'll feed small adult soft-furreds. We'll do hopper size to young adult mice. And then as far as rats go, really like a crawler rat is about as big as we'll go for most of the adult ARFR. The big female that reproduce, she's about 3 feet. She's a really big snake. And yeah, she's a beast. And she'll take a large small rat, like a large small on the verge of a small medium. So like maybe like a 80 plus gram small rat, and she could do that, and it'll leave just a modest sized lump in her belly. So she could take some bigger stuff, but the vast majority of everything else, as far as rats go, probably like a crawler. So really the better meal for them is a soft furred or a young adult mouse, because of the nutritional, like a young adult mouse has young adult nutrition, more developed bone, organ, what have you, where a crawler rat's
more
just kind of a
well-rounded.
little, more well-rounded. The rat pup is more just kind of a gushy little, protein pouch, for them. And so it's like we try to do a little diversity. We're raising chickens now, and as well as quail, and hatching them, for some extra diversity in the diet too. The baby chicks come out perfect adult are for size, and the baby quail are young palm viper size. They're very small,
Nice.
and a lot of the times they will go after that because it has a scent. We euthanize them with CO2. I won't feed them live. That's horrible. I like the birds. I don't want to see that. But a lot of the are for other than that one female who is really 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 just bold and like I said, just snatches stuff off the forceps. The rest of them are kind of pouty about that. So really, the rest of them want live. So we'll just toss in live, and they usually will take it, no problem. Nice. But so if you're gonna do live, we want to make sure that the prey that we're putting in there cannot inflict damage on those snakes. So sure. Young adult mice and young adult softards, really at the biggest, because they if they bite back, it's not going to do too much damage to the snake, because that I remember one of these palm vipers, I did a adult mouse, and they grabbed it, but they grabbed it on the back end, and that snake or that mouse turned around and just latched onto this snake's cheek, and I almost had a heart attack. I was like, I put the forceps in the mouse's mouth so it could chew on that, because the snake wouldn't let it go. The snake was just hanging on tighter, right? And I think that's where a lot of these snakes end up getting injuries from prey items. Is I had that happen with a black-headed python here, that we were euthanizing rats, a bunch of large rats, and as an adult black-headed python, and I ran out of CO2 halfway through the process, and I was like, oh man, I got to feed this rat's like starting to wake up from it because it didn't go through a full cycle. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience, and I tossed it to the blackhead. And they're like a big dumb king snake. They come flying out and grabs it by the back end too, and it wakes this rat up, because it was like coming to, and of course this rat just bites right into the side of this blackhead. Really good bite, blood's everywhere, and it was just it's horrible, blood all over the floor,
That blackhead that you have is a dick too, doesn't help.
Oh yeah, but both of them, they're definitely. I treat them like they're venomous. I'll pull them out with a snake hook, or most of the time when I service the enclosure, I just throw a rat in its mouth, and once it wraps it, I just put it in the can and then stuff it back in the enclosure. When we're done, because you can't just reach in there and grab that. So the snake is not a bad snake once it's outside of its feeding response, but when that door drops down, I mean, it's like a mamba with a feeding response. It's just it's a beautiful snake, but for how much everybody loves those snakes, it's there are people that just solely breed those snakes too, and they love them, but you really got to love them. And they're all obviously not all that way. Every snake is an individual, but they are definitely they are a big python king snake is what they are. With that same, when you have king snakes for a while, and it's like second the door opens, they're like food. They latch onto the side of the tub. They latch onto themselves. They latch onto you. And those black-headed pythons are just like that. Just a long, lean python that acts like a dumb California king snake.
Well, speaking of Aussie stuff, how are the deathies, the Death Adders?
They're alive.
No productions on the horizon.
No, I haven't. I've been really bad about just even trying to. I've got male here, and we have a single Maruki male And we have a pair of Dajaras that the female is proven too. She gave us 27 babies in 2017, and those babies were quite the nightmare to get going, and it just you really have to spend a lot of time on them. If you're gonna to get them established. And so some people don't have any troubles with them. I had a lot of troubles, and I was tease feeding them, pinky heads and stuff, and I was able to get them to bite them and eat it. I was treating them like a tree viper, a terrestrial tree viper. Is they caught lure and stuff, so the old tail tap, side of the head tap, and I know that Scott probably is much more dialed in with snakes, but I just they ate for me, but they just every time he's probably got all of the tips and tricks, and this go around I probably would have just tried to feed him house geckos or skinks or something, instead of trying so hard with what I was doing, because every single time I did the tease feeding thing, they would eat, but every next time after that, it was like the first time you ever offered them a meal, it was always so hard to get them to eat. Like, you ended up spending so much time per snake, and it never seemed to get easier, like they never just seemed to get with it. Like, next time, it was a little easier than the last time, and the next time, until they're finally just taking them off the forceps. The litter that I got was just really a nightmare, and right now I just wouldn't have the time to dedicate to all of those babies unless I had a really good source for lizards or skinks, or I hadn't tried brown anoles. You'd have to go out and you'd have to find the right size brown anole. That would be the problem, is like, you can't just be like, I just want real small ones. You have to go out there and look. But yeah.
Well, if you make more, you let me know, and I will gladly get them eating for you.
Yeah. What do you have you established
just
death adders?
Patience, man. Just patience. And I regret not keeping any of the stuff that I had in the past. And
and I had the patience too, like I was just like, man,
it's time, man. It's time management.
It was time. It was so much, when we had the litter, we had over 400 snakes in the collection at that time. And are you guys there?
Yeah, we lost you for a second. You said you had 400 snakes at the time.
Yeah, so sorry, my earbud died. I had to switch it for the other one. We had 400 snakes at the time, and we had a litter or a clutch of chondros hatch, and we had 16 baby chondros that I had to establish at that time. Also, we had a Sri Lankan palm pit viper give birth to 7 babies, and then I had those to establish. And so there was a lot of really aggravating snakes that showed up all at once. And it was just, and then in addition to a bunch of other neonates that we had just received, and it was very, very, very time consuming. And now I think I would approach things a little differently on everything. I don't think what I was doing was wrong, because I was getting the animals to eat, but I think that it was, I wasn't feeding them. I wasn't offering them food twice a week to really get that feeding response kicking in. It was maybe every 10 days or something like that. And also with the level of tease feeding that I had to do, that I felt like I was really stressing these animals out. I didn't really want to do it more than I was already doing it. And you know how it goes. But the female that produced this, she's still here, and I should probably give her a go, just because, and we also had some, disease things going through we always end up, so lucky with getting some of these things. We learn a lot each time, and we get a little bit better at managing the collection through each one of these. But we had an outbreak of cryptosporidium in the collection, and it was it's a very cryptic disease when it's not showing itself, and you don't really know if who's got it, who does, and you really unless somebody's actively showing you symptoms and regurgitating or mid-body swelling or looking like they're waste, they're we had animals that were looking like they were wasting away but eating once a week and not looking like you hadn't fed them in a year. And the cryptosporidium, it will affect the way that the animals digest their food, process nutrition, so on and so forth.
Which are you at liberty to say what species? Was it venomous stuff?
Oh yeah, no, I mean we had lost Papua New Guinea taipan to crypto. We lost a jararaca, both our jararaca to crypto. We lost a captive born and raised perfect yearling, both Riotas Taniata, the speckled forest pit viper.
Damn.
Oh geez, we had a couple other things, and we've been doing crypto tests on things and doing like gastric swabs, sending them into University of Florida for the proper tests, the qPCRs and what have you. And we ran a test. We did 24 samples of 24 different snakes, and might have been 24 different species too. That had looked like, just visually to me, like there could be something going on, whether animal had regurged at some point, is looking like, is eating well, but not gaining any weight and looking like it's wasting weight. Just red flags. We sampled a lot of red flag snakes, and out of those 24 samples, literally all of them came back negative, and these were swabs that we tubed the snakes. We put the swab, PM put the swab into what we assumed was the stomach area as far as the depth goes on whatever size snake that we were swabbing, and you get a real good. And this is a sterile swab. It's basically it looks like a little mini snake tube that a neonate coral snake or something could fit in, right? But it encases your swab that you use, and you basically put this little tube down the animal's throat till you get to the approximate stomach area, and then you push the swab from the outside out of the tube, goes into the stomach. You swirl it around, get a good sample, pull that swab back into that tube. So when it comes out, you're not getting any of the other stuff, on the sample as you go up. And, Pia's no stranger to doing this kind of stuff. She got good samples, good solid samples. If anything was there, it would have, at least active crypto that we would have seen it. But sometimes, it's not shedding at the certain time. The virus is not virus, but the disease is, not running its course.
Yeah, it's not rampant. Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors in that, a lot of variables on whether you're going to get a positive or negative, and then you might have to try again in 3 months, and maybe you'll get that positive to show up. So it really goes into your keeper observational skills, right? Like what a lot of these snakes that were showing symptoms were snakes that we have raised from babies for years. So I knew, you what they look like when they're healthy and they're doing good, and when they're off. You look at them and there's something off there. They're not holding their head in the same way that they normally do. They're instead of tightly, coiled like a palm viper should be, they're sprawled out, you're looking uncomfortable, they're looking stressed, they're moving around a lot, or they're not moving around enough for what they are. And you just see it. And that could be an indicator to pull them and put them into isolation or whatever while you're running these tests. But we, the ones that we have confirmed positive cryptos on were unfortunately the deceased animals after necropsy. Sometimes you're not getting the information you want when they're alive. The Jararaca, and when we did the necropsy, at first it did not show as crypto. They had to run another test and do something else with the stomach lining and stuff, and then all of a sudden there it was, but I knew that snake was circling the drain for a year. It was a 3-foot Bothrops that was regurgitating, Pinky and Pup rats because it couldn't hold him down. This is a snake that's physically capable of digesting a medium rat, and it's throwing up, pup rats. And, we, I don't know if we ended up submitting samples and got nothing back when the snake was alive, but we ended up making the call to euthanize that animal and send it in for necropsy because it wasn't dying, and we knew at this point it was not going to get better. And we needed some answers, because this snake we raised it, and for a baby, and it was just a solid Bothrops, everything that you would expect out of the genus. And when it started acting the way it did, it was just a red flag. So a lot of the times the keeper's insight can be more correct than the tests are at the time. Like you observe your animal. If there's a problem, get that animal somewhere away from all the other animals while you're figuring out if it's something that can, spread through the collection and whatnot. We've upped our quarantine, and our again, it just seems like every time it's a new level of what we do. So it ends up making us better at the end of the day, but it really, when you're going through it, it doesn't feel so good. But with crypto, there's only a handful of disinfectants that actually disinfect crypto, and like bleach and quaternary ammonias like F10 and Simple Green are ineffective on crypto. Soap and water is not effective to clean, the protozoan. So hydrogen peroxide solution 6% or greater is what veterinarians say to use against crypto. So there's different disinfectants. We use one called Rescue that is a veterinary disinfectant that is allegedly supposed to kill crypto. It kills parvo and puppies, which is another really, really hardy disease that is not easily disinfected. And we sanitize all of our equipment with that. We also have a 12% hydrogen peroxide solution that we have to wear. We wear gloves, always, but you can't use the 12% solution without gloves, or you'll get chemical burns on your fingers. So that, that's for cleaning buckets. It's food safe hydrogen peroxide. It's food grade, but you still don't want that stuff on your hands. It'll turn your fingertips all white. And it's pretty intense stuff. But, we have multiple cans in rotation and multiple sets of hooks in rotation when we work the animals. So, like, if we do one snake now, we'll sanitize with that hydrogen peroxide solution, Rescue, or the 12%. And we'll set that can to the side, use another can, sanitize that can, set it to the side, do another can, set it to the side. By the time we're through our sets of cans, that first can has been sitting for, over 20 minutes and has really sat there and really sanitized. And then we'll hose the whole thing off and, and then start over. So we're really maniacal on sanitation now. And it's really not paranoia as much as it is just kind of how we have to do things. If we really want to eliminate a lot of these problems, like, you have to spend the time and the energy to do, and the money to do it properly. And even then, it's not foolproof. We've definitely seen animals in different rooms that have tested positive for crypto and died from crypto, and that we work on totally different days. Different people work them. Some of the snakes in the main room and stuff, I don't work with as much anymore because we have team members that are capable of doing that. So I work with a certain group of snakes. Other people work a different group of snakes, and we try not to cross that too much. And
Sure.
One of the things that I undoubtedly and I know Zach Loman is that's how you pronounce his last name, right?
Yeah, Dr. Loafman.
Yeah. I remember hearing him say this on one of your guys's shows, and I 100% stand behind it. The little forward flies or the scuttle flies that we have here in the Southeast. I mean, like it is damn hard, if not impossible, to eradicate these things from getting into your enclosures. The second an animal defecates and you don't have fully sealed vents from insect netting or something, those flies are going to get in there. And crypto is only spread through physical contact, saliva or fecal, contact. So it's not something that's airborne, that's floating around, and it has to be transmitted. So whether it's a snake on a hook and you don't wash your hooks, a snake in a can and you don't wash your cans, and even if you're using bleach, that's still not going to kill crypto. So effectively, you're using just water to do it. And you may not know. I think we've had it for a minute, and just the animals were not showing symptoms because we haven't brought in any animals, other than Derek stuff, and nothing real notable in a long time, and these and the rooms that have had animals that have tested positive for crypto, just when you reflect on the equipment that you use, different equipment, different buckets, different people in the rooms at different times, and you're just like, how did it get here? And then you see these little forward flies, moving from one enclosure to the other, and they look like little fruit flies. And if they're dancing around on some infected snake's feces, and they go into the next enclosure and they tap dance all over the snake, crawl around on their water bowl, maybe die in their water bottle or water bowl, and the snake gets a drink, then boom. And I think Zach was saying, on one of your guys' episodes, that it takes 3 to 5 crypto spores or whatever to infect the snake. That's not very many from how much of that is present in a snake that's actively shedding the disease in its feces, and really, if you have a snake that has it and regurgitates, man, those flies, they are just, you open that bin and they just all fly out into the room, and now they're going to go visit every other enclosure that you've got. And man, it's a real problem. I know that there's drain fly. They also call them drain flies. Forward flies are in the filth fly family, so they're attracted to moist, tropical conditions, your mulch, your feces, your Florida, pretty much Florida and the rest of the Southeast U.S. I don't remember ever dealing with these when I lived in the Southwest. I don't ever remember seeing forward flies, and then now you get them in your incubator boxes out here. They're just very, very, they're annoying because it makes me feel like all the things that we're doing with all of our sanitation practices and our testing and everything, it's like, what's it all for? Because with these, as long as these flies exist, I feel like we're really not, we're eliminating some variables by cleaning our equipment with the right disinfectants and whatnot. But, with those flies around, it just, they could move it from room to room. We have the catchy, fly catchers. Those work. Those pull some off the streets. We have different fly traps and whatnot. But still, it's not getting them all. You really have to. When we have the new building up, we're going to really, think hard on how we can really prevent those flies from getting into the areas where snakes are. And I know it's not going to be a perfect scenario, but I know there's got to be some things that we could do. Just like, when you go into a gas station or something and and the thing above your head blows all the air out, so it doesn't, let out all the air, in the gas station or whatever. Maybe something like that where you open the door and just blows all the air, so these flies can't come in. Dump the forward fly killer down your drains, because the drain flies a lot of times are coming in through your drains, and that's how they're getting in there. But the forward fly killer for your drains is very expensive. And it's just dumping some bleach down your drain every day enough to keep those flies at bay. I don't know. I just haven't really been able to. They're just there. They're not there in numbers, but they just show up. And
Yep.
And
I've personally found that using Drano at least once a month, and it doesn't have to be a whole jug of Drano, but putting a solid, I don't know, maybe five shot glasses worth down your drain, like each of your drains, like your tub, your sink in your bathroom, your sink in your kitchen, once a month will definitely keep them at bay.
Yeah. No, I'll start doing that, because we see a difference. But we have a secondary containment for entering where all the venomous stuff is, and on nice days, we'll leave that door open, and a snake can't get out of it, but a fly can get in and out, especially those. And so it's like, they may be coming in through that. I was thinking about putting secondary insect wire over the wire that we have there for the secondary containment. It's extra money, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's
peace of mind.
It's peace of mind, and you just got to constantly be doing those little things to try to minimize as much of that as you can. And it may never be a perfect system, but
even something simple like using fly ribbon in summer when you have that, like in your secondary containment, like just put a fly ribbon in there, and that way if anything comes in the secondary containment, it's going to want to go to the ribbon, or hopefully wants to go to the ribbon.
Yeah. We definitely have some of those ribbons hanging about and what have you. So we just got to add more of them, and I don't know if those little yellow pest strips, I don't like putting them in the enclosures. I know people do that, but it is poison. So I like to try it maybe just behind the enclosures, and just seeing if that, or just like stick it to the back of the enclosures by where the vents are, and see if that's a deterrent. But just little things, but that's definitely something that I think people, especially in the Southeast, really need to be mindful of. With disease transfer, those little damn forward flies, I think that might be another reason how a lot of the diseases that we have spread. Those flies.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and Chris Barr had a great idea of using like a bug light or a bug zapper in the room too. Couldn't hurt,
Yeah, they make the bug lights, the bug zapper kind of things, but with a sticky pad, that they have a light that goes to the sticky pad.
Oh, that's cool.
To basically a lesser fire hazard way of taking care of them.
Sure.
With all the reptile stuff, it's a fire hazard just existing. I like with bug zapping around here too. I like that idea, but
yeah.
Those catchies have like a little UV light on them too that attracts.
Yeah, they do, and it definitely works.
I love those things. Yeah, I swear by those damn catchies, man. Those things are worth every penny. Oh,
they really are. Yeah, I would put multiple in a room. They're $40 each. They're not too bad. When you want to buy a fleet of them, it adds up pretty quick. But they definitely do their job. We definitely catch a lot of them, as well as other flying things that could, spread disease, little moths and what have you. You don't think of a moth that's spreading a disease, but if it's in a cage with a diseased animal and then it dies, and I constantly find little moths drowned in snakes' water that got through the vents. So it's just those little things that somebody might not think of until you're eliminating all your variables, and you're like, well, what's left? I remember watching those flies crawling around on some snake feces, and then just crawled right out of that vent and then popped into the next enclosure next to it. And I was just I was like, there you go. That's it right there, you know? And, you know, there are some people that are like, well, you know, that are skeptical that could be a thing. But I'm just like, well, if the fly is walking around on the snake's poop and then goes to the next, you know, enclosure, and it doesn't take much to infect the snake, then how could that not be a plausible, you know, scenario on disease transfer? And Elliot Jacobson, Dr. Elliot Jacobson is a world-renowned reptile vet. He's retired now, but he's been most notable by reptile people probably for his work with paramyxovirus. He did a lot of research on paramyxovirus, wrote some papers and stuff, and we're lucky enough to call him a friend. He lives in Gainesville, and we'll go out with him, you know, periodically for, you know, dinners and grab beers, you know, and just chat. And you know, he definitely thinks that those forward flies can be mechanical transmitters of disease. You know, and it just seems like a logical thing. More testing and more research would have to be done, you know, controlled studies of, you know, but I think it's worth for some academic to test that, because I sure would love to, you know, they could work on it in our collection. They could work on it in our collection. We'll provide the samples, you know, you know, and see how it goes. Cause I feel like, you know, logically speaking, it just seems like a plausible thing.
Yeah, and you have not screamed and cursed at the world until you go to take a sip of your coffee and there's a forward fly just sitting on top of it.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the bane of my existence. So. Yep,
forward fly sitting in there that was just covered in crypto. You get crypto from your coffee.
Yep.
Crypto worries me more than Nido does at this point. Like, I'm much more concerned about crypto popping up than really anything else.
They're all bad, you know. We've experienced the gamut. We've had paramyxovirus, we've had nidovirus, we've had crypto, and you know, they're all bad. Our bout with paramyxovirus was not as bad as it could have been. We brought in 2 side-striped palm pit vipers, the Bothriechis lateralis, and they were in a collection that we knew of for years. They were good established snakes. Doesn't mean that they're not diseased. They exchanged hands a few times. By the time we got him, male wasn't acting right. Within 3 weeks, he was dead. Necropsied. You know, paramyxo. They were sent to us in the same bin. So the female, we tested her. We were not shocked when she was also positive with paramyxo. She acted fine until she died. About 3 weeks later, just like eating fine, out of the blue, dead, but she was infected with paramyxovirus. And and we ended up having it was for we got them right before the first Carpet Fest that we hosted here in 2019, and I broke quarantine against Pia's strong advice to not put them in the main Montaigne room until after they cleared quarantine. I really wanted to exhibit them for that event. Like, everybody cared about them as much as I did. They could have been in quarantine and nobody would have cared because there was plenty of other cool stuff to look at. But
sure.
They were beautiful snakes. I really wanted them for a long time. I knew of these snakes for a long time. They were in somebody's collection that I really trusted. Doesn't mean that the snakes can't be diseased. I don't think they were diseased from him, but they exchanged hands. She went into a few collections before they found their way here, so I think they picked it up along the way. And I had to put them in there, and we tested, and we still quarantined them in the room by working them last, having separate tools. They were in the same room, but we were conscientious of how and that probably saved everybody else in that room, because nobody else came down with paramyxo in that room. Ironically, we had a Mexican West Coast rattlesnake, Crotalus basiliscus, that in the main room, the main display room, that had come down with paramyxo a little while later, started gaping her mouth and acting like she had symptoms. And
it wasn't Big Pun, was it?
No, it wasn't Big Pun. That's a Mexican blacktail rattlesnake. We still have old Pun, and he's still as big as ever. she started gaping her mouth and acting like, you know, she had paramyxovirus, or at least the beginning symptoms of it. So we tubed her, swabbed her, sent in the sample. Sure enough, she came back positive with paramyxo. And we decided not to do it. We decided not to move her. We decided not to do anything because we were like, if we start moving stuff, you know, we don't know how things are going to play out if we just observe. So we left her in there, and sure enough, like 6 months went by, she never died. And we tested her again, and she tested negative for paramyxo. And Elliot Jacobs, when I was talking to Elliot Jacobs, and he's very vague when you ask him about stuff like that. A lot of these good veterinarians usually are, because they, you know, it's a lot of unknowns, so they don't want to
speak in definitives.
Right. So but I said, you know, is this like a nidovirus scenario where I could get, you know, she passes, you know, she doesn't die from the episode, but she can flare up and become infectious at another point in time, you know, due to stressors or what have you. And he says, if they don't die from it and they recover, they may end up being one of the best snakes in your collection, because they built up a little bit of that tolerance for it and stuff. And he said that there's no evidence that there's long-term transmission of paramyxovirus after they have either died or recovered from that episode.
Wow.
And that snake, we still have her right now. She's super solid. Always ate the whole time she had paramyxovirus. I mean, it can wipe out a whole collection in a matter of weeks. You know, we just you know, we caught it soon enough, and we kind of like slowed down our handling for cleaning and stuff. Like we still cleaned, but we weren't just going, you know, we were very cautious.
Taking precautions.
Yeah. And, you know, she recovered, and, I'd like to do another test just to see, you know, but it's interesting data, and it just kind of goes to show is like, sometimes it could be a catastrophic collection ending event, and then sometimes the animal, you know, that's what genetic diversity helps with. Not everything's going to die from it. You know, something, you know, just like COVID, some people got a little bit of a sore throat, and some people died from it, you know. It's just you know, so now when we end up dealing with these kind of things, it's like, I used to be like the world is ending and it can, but now I'm a little bit more, I don't know, mature to it when something
optimistic.
comes back. Optimistically pessimistic or pessimistically optimistic. You know, I'm just a little bit less like reactive, not reactionary to it, and just go right to proactive. Like, okay, well, what are we going to do with our, you know, sanitizing practices now? How are we going to move forward? Like, what we do a 2-glove system when we're cleaning enclosures now. You know, we'll have the latex gloves on or your nitrile gloves on, and that's the primary gloves you're wearing as you're just doing everything, and you're sanitizing your gloves in between things with the right sanitizers, because you don't want to put that on your hands, so you do it on the gloves. But we also have food prep gloves that are biodegradable, so if they end up in the environment, that they'll fall apart. You know, they're not like plastic gloves.
Oh, nice.
But we'll put those over the other gloves, so if you're doing a spot clean, instead of spot cleaning with like salad tongs or something and using the same salad tongs for every single enclosure, we're doing these gloves, putting them over your other gloves, use them as kind of a doggy bag, you know, and grab what you need to clean, toss it, and then toss the gloves that you are wearing, sanitize your primary gloves, and then put a new set of the disposable gloves over those for the next enclosure. And I mean, it costs a little bit of money to do that. We try to use the biodegradable gloves wherever we can, just because we're going to be using a lot of them, and we don't want to do that to the environment, you know. But It's like kind of one of those things that it's just what we do now. It's a standard practice, and that certainly is going to eliminate some variables. But it's you know, and as long as you keep your management practices, disease management practices high, and take it seriously, and do the right research, and listen to people that have had these issues happen to them and have been proactive to try to fix it. It's you're not going to lose your whole collection. Animal might fall here and there, and really it's kind of inevitable. If you're doing this for a long time and you have a lot of animals in the collection, if
you're bound to have something happen.
If you're not experiencing it, you're not testing for it, because you just don't know that you have it. The animal died, but it was, everybody comes up with their own optimistic opinion on why the animal died. But I never act like I know why it died until the necropsy comes back, because I get blindsided every single time I act like I know what just happened. And if you take it as a learning opportunity, it doesn't hurt as bad, because we're looking long term into the future. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to pace yourself. And as we grow this collection, because it is growing, and we're sitting somewhere around 70 different species of exotic venomous snakes right now.
Wow.
And that number is growing. And like I said, it's not going to be the first time that we've seen something. It won't be the last time, and new stuff too, that maybe doesn't even have a name yet that we'll be dealing with. So really just like as these things happen, we just really become very mindful of what else that could be out there. And let's just try to do everything as clean and as sanitary as we possibly can. And, and learn from what the data tells us. If an animal dies and we necropsy it, it's like where we go from there. And it's the best you can do. Just like veterinarians are practicing veterinary medicine, we're practicing herpetological husbandry and disease management and stuff. It's not a perfect science, and there's always room for improvement as you learn more about what you're dealing with. And take it as a learning lesson and take it as an experience, and you can enjoy the journey a little bit more, because I know that there's definitely times where I'm not really enjoying the journey that much.
Yeah.
So, So you have to be like, well, let's start getting interested in reading books about crypto and nidovirus and termixovirus, and start really, like, when this stuff happens, like really, get into it.
Take something from it at least,
But I'm fortunate
that's the way I see it now too. Is it sucks, and it's not any fun, but there's a lot you can gain so much from those events too.
Absolutely.
And then you can take that and help other people with it as well. And now it's like you hear somebody else having a similar situation, exactly what road they're going down. Like, here's what I did, for what it's worth.
Yep.
Oh yeah. No, we're always open to talk about it and everything. There's no secrets here. We understand that it's a part of it, and happy to help somebody, and I think also when people hear that, they're a lot more willing to talk about those things versus wanna they're ashamed, like they're not doing things right. Like I said, I know of multiple zoos that are dealing with some pretty serious disease go through their collection, and and these are some of the best zoos that are in the country, and so it doesn't make you a bad keeper or neglectful keeper or anything like that. It just the fact that you're looking into it more, going to take your animals for testing and necropsying shows that you are above board, above average keeper, because you're doing what most will not do, and it's expensive too. It's expensive to do necropsies and testing. I mean, each one of those, we don't really get any breaks on anything, just because Pia's in the field. These tests still cost money. These things are, there's no real way around it. So, we're not made of money. So we have to, kind of, really pick and choose like what's going for necrops, when we're dealing with, these active outbreaks and stuff. And if an animal, if we've already tested a couple animals for crypto or something and another animal dies, it's like, oh, do you spend another 300 if it was an animal that was doing good and it exhibited these symptoms and it died? People always necropsy and send back samples to send in, put it in Form 1. So if we need to test it, so we always hang back on samples if we need to. But sometimes we're just like, we've spent the money. We know that this is in the collection. This is likely this because this animal has had a history of good health and all of a sudden declined and then crashed, exhibited the same symptoms as the animals that have tested positive. We're not going to send this one, but we will collect samples and freeze them if we need to use them. But it's a lot of money, and there's just no way around that. But it's money well spent for if you have an animal that you've had for a while and all of a sudden it dies, look into that. Look into that. If everything has been going good and the animal's only 5 years old and out of the blue it died, but none of your husbandry has changed and everything is perfect there, it's like, well, why did it die? That's where I'm like, okay, I've raised this animal. This animal was picture perfect of health. Up until the coastal, not coastal, it's the same thing now, but the Papuan taipan, that animal is captive born. It's captive born by Alcarets. And we had it as a young snake, and it was just a perfect little taipan. And this within a week just went downhill, saggy skin, looked completely dehydrated, looked like it hadn't had a drink of water in a month, and had a fresh, clean bowl of water right next. I've actually got video of it sitting next to the water, and hooked it out. Put it in a can with a little bit of water, just so it's sitting in the can and it will drink while it's in there. And this snake just let me pull it out it just was kind of limp on the hook, and the taipan shouldn't be limp on a hook. And I was able to flip it on its back with the hook in the can, and it didn't right itself. And I was like, something is clearly wrong here. And I was like, this snake is going to be dead by the end of the day. And sure enough, it was. We sent it in for necropsy. And that's when we found out it was crypto. That was for the first time. I was like, oh, great. It's, at first I thought paramyxovirus because that's just kind of what I was in my head. And we had no past history of crypto in the collection. Out of all the necropsies and stuff that we've submitted, nothing has ever came back with crypto. And so that was a complete blindsided, shot there. And that's when other animals started to exhibit signs and stuff. And it was just like, sometimes, I'll say, God, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any. But
Albert King song.
But, it's really how you look at it, because really, these are lessons moving forward with our development that I feel like we need to go through to be better moving forward with an even larger species collection in the future. So like learning how to manage, our collection is not small. We're sitting somewhere around 200 snakes, smaller than some people's collection, but by most people, when they hear, you have 200 venomous snakes, that, that's a lot to a lot of people, of 70 different species, lots of diversity, lots of ability to hide diseases very well amongst the different genuses and stuff. It's just something that, like I said, it doesn't feel good when you're going through it, but it's like working out. It doesn't feel good while you're doing it, but it's the results that you're looking for through all of that pain. They say no pain, no gain, and really the only real way to grow is through pain. They call it growing pains for a reason. And it's every time we go through this, I go through a few different phases where it's like just throw up the arms and say I'm gonna quit, and then after I'm done being a baby for 10 minutes, then I'll get my game plan together, and then we'll just go at it and execute it and be better next time. And it's I just think it's important, but you got to embrace it. You got to embrace disease and management and figure out how to do it to the best of your ability. And because it's there, and if you don't think it is, or you think that I have never seen anything in my collection, I'm good and whatnot, it's just you're naive because it's gonna, it's gonna happen.
It's bound to happen. Hopefully it doesn't, and we hope that it never does. But it's being pragmatic and saying, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, I'm mentally and physically prepared for it.
Yeah. No, I hope no. I don't hope. I hope everybody gets to live long and prosper with their collections, and they don't have to go through the same kind of heartaches that we have. We've lost some amazing animals that have dear to our hearts and stuff, and we like to pride ourselves on the way that we manage the collection with our testing and disease management and stuff, and we've definitely had some serious blows that have knocked us down real hard that we had to get up from and keep going, and that's all you could do. You could either quit or learn and keep going, and it's like I'm so I've been, I'm 36 now. I've been doing this my whole life. Like I really there's really nothing else that I'm going to go, that I want to go do. I could reinvent myself and go do something else if I wanted to, but I've learned so much during my whole time doing this and professional development in this field that we can really help other people that are doing this, also help the animals that they're caring for and stuff. And it's like, it would be a waste to throw in the towel now. That's a long time, to be doing this, to just quit. But there are days where, it's a thought, but then I'm like, well, what else would I do? So
it's what we love, man. It's what we love.
Yeah. And it's, building a zoo is a lot different than working at a zoo. And when I got to collect a paycheck for my knowledge and experience versus building the zoo and that overhead and expenses, and then you're the one that when I was at the alligator farm, we had the vets from UF come every 2 weeks and see the animals and do everything, whatever I wanted to put on the vet list I could. And it was it was the alligator farm's bill, and it was less stressful. Now I understand what it's like to be a functioning zoo where you have to pay those bills and it's a whole new feeling. It's definitely a lot of work and a lot of trial, error, and frustration. There is some joy in there. I heard a quote the other day that I really liked. It's not every day is good, but there is some good in every day.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, and that I kind of have been thinking about that a lot lately. When days are not so good, or things are hard, or whatnot. That maybe today wasn't good, but what was good within this day that you can push on to the next day and move forward from. And it's keeps you going.
I like it, man. I like it. And on that wonderful note, we are at the 2-hour mark. Smithy, anything else?
We are. No, it's good.
It's good, man. Well, thank you, Cody, for coming on tonight, and make sure that everyone goes and checks out the Reptile Preservation Institute on Instagram and Facebook, as well as Cody Bartolini's personal page, because he loves the likes like we all do. And tonight's episode was brought to you by the fine people of the Pacific Northwest, the Puget Sound Pythons, as well as
BlackBoxCages.com.
BlackBoxCages.com.
You know it. You love it. Use the code THN at checkout. Save a little bit.
It's worth it.
Yes.
Am I still, oh, you're still here, man.
I'm still on. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I got thrown back in the
No. You're still in there. You're still in there.
Yeah. Hey, really quick. I know, we're dropping it kind of at the end of the show, but maybe just a little teaser, and then we'll come back on, later to go into more detail with stuff as we have more details. But we're partnering up with TRC, the Rattlesnake Conservancy, on some captive husbandry venomous courses, and we'll go into more detail about all of that. But that's going to be happening this year, tentatively in April. We still have other details internally to iron out.
Awesome.
But yeah, so just like the Rattlesnake Conservancy has their level 1 and 2 handling courses that kind of focus around native to Florida species or native to the Southeast U.S. species. The captive husbandry course is going to be more geared towards that. Also, you know, there's going to be one day of basically classroom work of you know, PowerPoints and lectures and stuff going over you know, Florida laws, containment, permitting stuff, and all of that, and then a practical day where the students will be at our facility and you know, physically working some of these different species, and there'll be a multiple level course there. I think, you know,
Nice.
there'll be like a level 3 and 4 and so on, you know, because there's a lot to cover. You know, you're not going to be working a black, you know, 10-foot black mamba on your first day. You know, we're going to ease you into the stuff and teach the fundamentals to be successful, you know, moving forward with this stuff. And, you know, in the classroom, we'll be talking about procuring your own legal anti-venom and all the stuff that, you know, we feel like there's not a lot of places to go to get that information. You know, here in Florida, well, in Florida, you know, some people are willing to mentor, you know, for venomous experience. Some, you know, just don't want to deal with the hassle, the headache, or the liability. So people that are looking to become licensed or looking for direction don't really have a good place to go. And there's some people in Florida that I wouldn't necessarily want to learn from. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we, you know, we feel like we're kind of obligated to do that. We have the knowledge and experience in the facility, and we're creating more facilities for just a training area to be able to handle these animals in a little bit more spacious area versus you know, confined in you know, closed areas with enclosures, although that'll be a part of it too because it's captive management. But you know, so we will be, and then like I said, in partnership with the Rattlesnake Conservancy. So once we have more of the details ironed out, you know, maybe Pia, Tony Daly Cruz, Tiffany, myself, you know, could hop on and we could, you know, have a little bit more details there, but just a little teaser that's coming in the future.
Nice.
And there's been some slight talk and promotion about it, but nothing real heavy as of yet. Like I said, we're still ironing out the details of how all that works, and we're going to be adding some species to the collection that we don't have that are more commonly seen in human care. You know, things like monocled cobras we don't have in the collection currently, but we feel like they're a very good training cobra because they're, you know, they're highly venomous, very willing to bite you, and but not an overly big cobra, and it's an animal that's commonly seen in venomous herpetoculture. So it's a good animal to, you know, have exposure to things like aspidolaps, gaboon vipers, puff adders, some tree vipers, you know, like albolabris and you know, eyelash and things like that would be animal, you know, maybe you know, some rattlesnakes like western diamondbacks that are exotic to Florida, you know, not exotic to the U.S., but considered exotic to Florida, you know, because the people that take the TRC 1 and 2 course, they're working with eastern diamondbacks and canebrakes and copperheads and water moccasins and stuff. So a western diamondback would be a different type of rattlesnake there. But well, we will kind of figure out what kind of snakes that we want to use for these things, and then also acquire the anti-venoms for those snakes, you know, prior to the courses, you know, so we have good adequate stock for we're hoping, of course, to never use the anti-venom,
right?
But you know, we want to make sure that we have all of our, you know, T's crossed and our I's dotted there, and And yeah, so it should be a lot of fun, you know, and this course can be for, you know, somebody who is wanting to get into keeping venomous reptiles. It could be for a zoo professional that is looking for some additional knowledge and techniques to take back to their zoo to work with some of their stuff as well, or biologists in the field that, you know, maybe doing scientific research on these animals and learning new ways to secure them and work with them for their research or whatnot. Sure. But yeah, no, it'll be a lot of fun, and so that's something to look forward to in the horizon that we have cooking at the moment.
Excellent. Well, boys and girls, children of all ages, this has been Snakes and Stogies, episode 147 on the Herpetoculture Network. My name is Phil Wolf. Joined as always is the illustrious Mr. Justin Smith and our special guest, Cody Bartolini from the Reptile Preservation Institute. Thank you.
We will be back Thursday for THP as usual. And then Chris and I are working on getting a Corn Stars episode together for the following week. So
awesome.
Stuff's in the works as usual.
Love it.
Thank you all.
Cool, guys. See ya.
Bye.